Hey guys, Connor here. Usually I'm reacting to football games or talking about past Super Bowls, but today we're performing a little experiment, okay? It's no secret that the 2025-2026 season saw a decline for the Kansas City Chiefs. Stepping into it, putting it up. You've just got to be kidding me. Yeah, this team doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Whether it was Andy Reid being unwilling to adapt his offense to a more run-heavy, under-center scheme, like that of the Rams or the Seahawks, or the defense just giving up clutch conversions to teams who would have had no business doing so in the past, something's got to change. And that's where I come in. Today, we're going to be doing an epic rebuild of the Chiefs, spanning God knows how many seasons. And we're going to see if we can get Patrick Mahomes more rings than Brady, with the clock ticking down until his eventual retirement. Season 1, 2026. 2027. Well, I had to create the league and chose to start at week 16 of the 2025 season. That was the latest I could choose, by the way, even though I started during wildcard weekend. I put the game difficulty on all Madden. I set the Chiefs to lose the remaining games like they did in real life, and imported the custom draft class containing next year's rookies. I found it browsing the fan-made draft classes, and it was mostly accurate, although I had to make some tweaks to the order, and obviously people like Dante Moore hadn't decided to go back to Oregon yet, so he'll be, in that draft, even though he's not actually going to be. I simmed to Super Bowl weekend where the Bills were taking on the Seahawks in Bills fans' wildest dreams, and I decided to re-sign Leo Chanel because he's my glorious hunky king, and also because I wanted him to stay on the team for now and ended up franchise tagging Kelsey to keep him around one more year because we didn't have enough cap room to flat out sign him for another year. The Bills ended up beating the Seahawks in Bills fans' wildest dreams, and Josh Allen got his first ring in Bills fans' wildest dreams. Not having much cap space meant we'd have to solve a lot of our issues in the draft, and we were forced to let a ton of players walk as we were only able to re-sign Leo and Kelsey, really. Also, I went into the 2026 draft with a few key goals in mind, and here they are. Draft Jeremiah Love and give Mahomes a run game. In real life, he's coming off of a torn ACL and LCL, and honestly, in real life, I feel like the best way to protect him would be develop the run game, and that really starts with getting an elite back in Jeremiah Love, who I hope the Chiefs get him in real life, to be honest with you. That's my actual thoughts on the real life draft strategy. The thing about Jeremiah Love is he could be like a top 2 or 3 player in the entire draft. It's just that he plays a position that has kind of fallen out of favor and is seen as less valuable now compared to other things, like edge rusher, quarterback, offensive line, stuff like that. But I think that getting a good back and taking some pressure off of Mahomes is key for us in the game and in real life, to be honest with you. And then 2, find an edge rusher who can support Chris Jones and Karlaftis on the other side, and this is a position the Chiefs have really failed to proficiently fill and struggled to develop in the past few years, and their inability to pressure the quarterback cost them dearly this year, for sure. You think of FAU never really putting it all together and coming online. Even, George Karlaftis seems to be a good player, but he's really not an alpha edge rusher. He's not a guy who is an X factor who's going to take over a game. The way Chris Jones is, for sure. He needs help. You think we have guys like Mike Dana on the roster. They're all just guys. Omenahu, nobody really who's just a crazy difference maker. And George Karlaftis is definitely a good player and is the closest thing to that we have. But I need to find somebody to pair with him and with Chris Jones to improve our pass rush. And 3, find another receiving threat that can either replace Kelsey or Rice, because we're not planning for either of them being with us in the long term. Kelsey, obviously, because of his retirement on the front door, and Rice because his rookie tenure with us was really just filled with controversy, suspensions, injuries, and that overall just hindered his development in a way where he's kind of, up to this point, just squandered his potential. And then 4, our last goal is find a difference maker in the secondary. Our secondary is filled with young and inconsistent guys at safety and corner, and the only guy who's really a set-in-stone value piece is Trent McDuffie. I wasn't able to re-sign anybody, and a lot of guys walked from this position earlier during the re-signing stage. So, keeping those points in mind, let's see how we did. Funnily enough, Dante Moore goes number 1 to the Cardinals, even though he's returning to Oregon this year. But actually, this is kind of a blessing in disguise because it makes the Raiders, who have the number 2 pick in the game, but number 1 in real life, to actually select Fernando Mendoza, which they definitely will. Like, there's no question about that in real life. And players keep flying off the board till they reach us at 9, and we welcome Jeremiah Love to the Kansas City Chiefs. You might be asking yourself, Connor, why does Jeremiah Love look like default white guy 1 on stage, more like himself in this picture? Well, I'm glad you asked, dear viewer, because this brings up a great point about Madden that I'd like to address. It's a terrible dogwater game made by dogwater developers who don't give a flying fuck about franchise players. You see, there are people who put in countless hours of their own sweat, blood, and tears, make realistic draft classes for the game, and EA rewards that effort with a handful of shit. Because if you download one of these draft classes that people have handcrafted, there's a good chance that a bug that has plagued the game for years and has never been fixed will happen, and all the players in that draft class will have their custom appearances overwritten. They'll all be replaced with default bodies, default heads, gear, numbers, which are 11 and 21. So going on from here, if you see a player that looks a little weird and is wearing 11 or 22 outside of a small handful, which I fix, just know that they came from this bugged draft class and it's EA's fault. Fuck them. Alright, sorry for the long rant and crash out, but anyways, back to the draft. Jeremiah Love falls to us and we get our elite Back of the Future, and we jump forward to the second round where we take R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher from Oklahoma. I think he's going to go in real life late in the first round, maybe in the second half of the first round. But a guy who showed elite ability on the field this year, but maybe had his stock tank a bit after injury sidelined him for a bit. At the beginning of round 3, I noticed that Bronco Nagurski trophy winner Jacob Rodriguez had fallen down the board. Without hesitation, decided to pick up our potential defensive signal caller of the future at linebacker. I seriously doubt he'd drop past the beginning of the second round in real life, but hey, this rebuild's for fun, so I'll take him. Next, round 4, we take wide receiver Kevin Coleman Jr. out of Mizzou, who had some good physical traits and speed to complement Rice and Worthy on the perimeter. Then we took defensive tackle Grayson Halton out of Oklahoma to help fill some depth on the defensive line, and that's it for us in the 2026 draft. I had to work painstakingly editing the rookies' appearances and gear to fix the horrendous bug, but then we went to adjust the depth chart and I made a shocking realization. Where the fuck is Chris Jones? The injured? The CPU trade him when I simmed forward? Nope, this bitch deadass retired in the offseason. Well, that's going to throw a wrench into my plans for the immediate future, and that's going to weaken our D-line to the point where we might not even be competitive this season. I end up signing Cam Little, who was a free agent, and traded Butker, who's been a bit too far right for my taste recently, to the Ravens for a 6th round pick for 2028. I ended up trading away Jawan Taylor as well for a few mid-round picks to get out from under his nightmare contract, and finally, I made a blockbuster trade to send Rashee Rice to Buffalo in exchange for their 1st round pick, 2027. After looking through the lineup, things were looking a little bit grim for this season, with Sam Howell being our starting QB for the beginning of the season, and our defense had hemorrhaged quite a bit of talent. It is beginning to look more and more like things might be a rebuilding year for us. We jumped into training camp and got some key upgrades for guys like Jeremiah Love, R. Mason Thomas, and J-Rod, and simmed week 1 of the regular season, where we'd be taking on the Miami Dolphins with Mahomes still being out and Sam Howell starting for us. I decided to play this season opening game manually, and it ended up being a just rainy slog. With the weather, we were unable to produce much with the arm of Sam Howell, and we had to lean mostly into the run game where we found some success, but late in the game, unwilling to trust our defense, I went for it instead of kicking the go-ahead field goal, and we pay the price as Kelsey slips backwards in the rain and we fail to convert, losing our opening game in Miami. The only real bright spot for us was R. Mason Thomas, who actually ended up having a monster day with 4 sacks, his first NFL game, but other than that, we completely failed to deliver offensively. We sim ahead to mid-season and we're 2-4, even with Mahomes back in the lineup. I end up signing Trent McDuffie to a huge $27 million year deal, as I want him sticking around and being a glue guy for our secondary for years to come, and we have a surprising amount of cap room with Chris Jones' departure. Next, we play a mid-season game against the Bengals and Joe Shiesty, where we light it up with 35 points in the first half, with Jeremiah Love putting up over 100 yards on the ground, and we end up blowing them out 48-31 in a high-scoring affair in the rain. We're now 3-4. Now, for the moment of truth, we sim forward to the end of the regular season, and yeah, we narrowly missed the playoffs. We end the season 9-8 as the 8th seeded team, with our opening game loss actually costing us dearly, as the Miami Dolphins end up with the same record as us, but take the head-to-head matchup to snatch the 7th seed and squeak in over us. All isn't lost though, because Jeremiah Love turns out to be a superstar dev player. Mahomes still puts up an impressive stat line of over 4,000 yards and 32 touchdowns, and Trent McDuffie, who we locked down with a long-term deal, turns into an X factor. However, Rashee Rice, who we traded to the Bills, ends up being a top 3 receiver for the season, almost 1,500 yards, 19 touchdowns. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below what you guys think. Are there any moves you guys thought I should make? Also, check out my Instagram. I'll have it linked down below, and check out some other videos. I've got plenty of content on the channel now. I've been uploading a lot of reactions to all of the NFL games that have happened recently. And yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.